I love some philosophy too, mate. Like I really dive into the whole stoicism and all that sort of stuff. I like to give it a little read or a little
Yep.
thought, so yeah, I completely agree. I don't think like I don't know what I truly believe. My mum is very spiritual, very
Hmm.
spiritual. So I do have a sense of that. But I do think, if there's anything next, you aren't a blank slate. I genuinely believe you're not just
Yeah.
completely
No.
fresh.
No. No. Yeah.
Like you must
No.
take
There.
something with you.
Yeah. I don't think so either. I
Yeah.
think. Yeah. No. I believe that there's. I mean, there's. We don't know until it happens, but I like to. Yeah. I like to believe there's purpose in everything, and the the other one that I was another stoic type philosopher, he was saying the same, like we're building skills now that we'll use far past this life.
Mm,
And it might be a skill of um, what I mean, I think it goes into there's so many things that afford us the opportunity to become humble or
mm,
empathetic.
mm.
I think those are like the two skills, and those carry over into everything now. But I think those are like two traits that we could say, man, if you could take those into all eternity, everybody will be lovely.
Mm.
Like if everybody was humble and empathetic, then loving people and being understanding is it's impossible not to be those. Like you have to
100%.
be that. So
Yeah,
yeah.
100%. And even if right, it is completely there is nothing. There is absolutely nothing, the whole like negative,
Mm-hmm.
pessimistic way of thinking, oh, it's just a black pit and you're no longer in existence. I'm like, all
Yeah.
right, okay, thanks, Cherry McGee. Um, but even if that, by thinking you take things with you, your whole mindset shifts. And then you actually
Yep.
value the things that you have right now a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all those little things that you can
Yep.
trick yourself to, believe, I guess, to then change your whole perspective on things, and then you no longer
Yeah.
think everyday life is a struggle. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. It puts it's it puts the positive spin on everything, because if you learn those lessons and you approach things, and I know we always uh, when I have talks with other strength coaches and things, you want to apply it to like the practical side of even training. But like
Yeah.
if I focus on all the little small minute technical details and do everything perfect, and I don't get much better, like I still tried and it was still worth it.
Mm,
And chances are I will get better. But if
mm,
I don't value any of those little things, it usually leads to like a lot of frustration, injury, despising the sport or the practice, like all of these, negative components. So you look at like it can be very, you look at what fruits come out of the endeavor. And if I put good things into it, then at worst, good things come out of it.
mm. And you also gain some knowledge, right? Rather than just being ignorant to the whole situation,
Always.
and that knowledge can then be applied everywhere else. Like I probably say this every single day, if not every other day. I'm like, hey, it doesn't necessarily matter what you do in the gym; it's what you develop in your head to then apply outside of the gym, right? Because like,
Yep.
there's what 0.1% that make money out of competitions and things like that. Professional
Yeah,
athletes. Everyone likes to think they're a
totally.
professional athlete, Like they
Oh
come
yeah,
in,
yeah.
they can do like half a push up and they're like, no, I'm a pro athlete. I'm like, all right, mate, yeah, you crack on. But it's really fascinating to see the transition of mindset from within the gym to then outside of the gym.
Hmm. Yeah,
I think that's my
yeah.
favorite part
And
about coaching.
I agree. I would say the sooner you figure that out, the more rewarding all the processes are.
Mm,
I would say, yeah, I probably didn't have that perspective for much of my my like athletic career,
yeah.
but I think I was learning it. But now when I think back, I think, oh man, thank you. I'm so happy that I'm able to like continue kind of harvesting from that. Like I'm still learning from a lot of the lessons from that time. And, you can be, you can be contemplative and think back to those times and still get lessons from them. So it's good when, like you just said, when you can try to transfer that, that thought process to your, people that you're training, people that you're around and being with, is to make things more mindful in the moment, with the hope that even if you're not seeing it immediately right now, you have this belief that it's leading to something in the future that could be training and sport related, but it could also be family, friend, life, career, mental health related, just because you're putting that spin and that perspective, and then you're kind of framing it in a more holistic way.
Oh, 100%. And I do think in the next, 5 to 10 years, but hopefully a little bit less than that, people are going to start paying a lot more attention to the whole physical training, but not for the physical health, for the whole mental health. If there's anything that makes you address your demons, it's like locking you inside and saying you can't leave your house, right? Everyone gets cabin fever.
Totally.
I think my favorite quote from it is from Matthew McConaughey, and you kind of like get sick. And he says, like, you get sick, you like shake hands with your own demons and devils and all that sort of stuff. And I'm like, oh wow, that's a really, like, that paints it in a really large picture, and it's fascinating.
Yeah.
But I really do hope that people end up coming out the arse end of it and thinking, oh, okay, like, it's not just to prevent obesity and heart disease and coronary artery disease and all that sort of stuff. It's like, oh, it's just to keep you sane.
Yep.
That's it. Day-to-day sanity.
No, it's totally. Most of us are given such opportunity to thrive on so many levels, but we don't always direct our energies in the ways that can help with that. So like you said, Matthew McConaughey, I like, because I haven't read it yet, but I know his book Green Light, the new book that he put out. I think it talks a lot about that. I think he's a very unique character and very philosophical and gets pretty deep, and I like that. But to say that when you're locked into quarantine essentially for a year, it's like you're forced to you're given the opportunity really to address some of your demons and like see what really bothers you. Or there's been a lot of people that have said, like, man, like you're locked in if you're married or you have children, like you're locked in this little area with them and there's no escape. Like you can't just run away to work, or you can't just run away to the gym and get away from it. You have to address some things. So you're forced into some confrontation, and then hopefully it's a good thing when you have to confront yourself, when you have to confront the people that you really should be sharing your life with and learning to thrive and grow. And I don't know. It's everything is perspective.
Yeah, mate. And that's the point. I really do think the whole point is to have those difficult conversations and to put yourself into that really like weird place where everyone wants to run away and hide it with, I don't know, like instantaneous pleasures like drinking or whatever. Yep. Like I love McConaughey's whole thing about his pilgrimages. He goes on like basically like, I think it's 14-day, like basically he calls it like a spiritual fast, and I think it's absolutely incredible. And just basically just stripping yourself down morally and just facing everything you need to. And I personally love it. I absolutely love it. Like I did a little road trip from Auckland right down to like Queenstown, so it's in the South Island, maybe 2/3 of the way down the South Island and then back. I did it in a week, but most of the time I didn't even speak to another human, didn't even see another human. Was just like I would camp in just this random place underneath a tree, and I would just get out this tiny little book and then just like write notes, write little poems, little whatever, just basically whatever the hell was going on in my head. I'd put it on a piece of paper and just give it a physical form, you know what I mean? And it's awful while you're doing it, but you come out the end of it and you feel incredible.
Yeah.
Like, and
Yeah.
I
No,
really
there's,
go on, boss.
oh, I was just gonna say that there's magic to that,
Totally.
because it's, you always hear, and people come into the gym and say, yeah, I've just been in a rut and I just need to get out of it. And I mean, your brain is in a rut depending on what we feed it. So if, like you said, if you can get on, go out and essentially do this little pilgrimage or spiritual, mindful, mental fast, you're getting out of what you're usually in, which for most of us now is, something like now we're on the phone. It's such a cool gift to be able to share with people, but most of the time we're not using our phone for this to, build relationship or conversation. We're just doing something that's occupying space in our brain that could be used better. There's another guy I listen to a lot, and he's a biblical scholar, but he talks about people's ability to memorize, learn language, things like that, pre-technology. So he always talks about, like, we think something is so astonishing when we believe that maybe a story or a moral or a lesson could have been transferred orally, like oral tradition, for thousands of years and been accurate. He's like, people weren't melding their brains with Twitter and Instagram. He's like, they were learning through story, listening to story, developing it to their culture and making it fit and work. And he's like, the brain is capable of so many things if we allow it to step out. And what you said with it being like, it's like almost horrible in the moment. You're like, oh, I got to write this stuff down, or I just have to sit here and think about something. But it's necessary because it gets you to kind of like switch tracks in your brain and work another area or another segment that's been neglected. And then that allows the other part to recover and rest a little bit. So it's like it's a little bit of GPP for your brain and your soul.
Sure.
Like get out of I think our minds are so sport specific to technology and instant gratification and instant stimulation that we lose a little bit of the benefit of like the slow twitch brain waves. Like we got to water those a little bit too and get into it's funny how everything connects, like whether it's getting philosophical about training, about work, about relationships, about diet and nutrition, about faith. Like they all follow the same principles. There's no black or white. Everything really thrives in the gray area. So when you start to drift too far one way or the other, if you're a weightlifter and all you do is snatch and clean and jerk every day for 10 years, you're going to be very unbalanced. If you're a marathoner and you focus on that, every day you do no strength training for 20 years, you're going to be done and be very unbalanced. The same sense, if we just only focus on one thing and think that it's the perfect, the right, the best way, we're probably missing a lot of other ways that can make that one better by sharing space.
100%. Like everything, if you take one thing as a singularity, it's going to be pretty good. It's going to be, you could be the best at the world in it, but it's the combination, it's the synergy between people, right? And all the things together that makes it beautiful and makes everything a lot better. I still remember, and I guarantee you this, everyone is going to agree with me who's ever done a seminar with yourself and Dave, is when you just casually were like, oh, roll me over a couple of plates. So they roll you over 2 20-kilo plates, and you're like, all right, can you roll me over a couple more, please? And they're like, oh, yeah, cool. Another 2, and you're like, yeah, keep going. Like, well, hang on, this fella's not even warmed up. Next thing you know, you turn around, you squat down with 140, and then you coach from the bottom of the squat with 140 on your back. I think that is the greatest way to start any coaching ever.
Yeah, it was that was inspired by Dave when he does his evolution of his handstand, and he just kicks up into this, what most of us would be super pumped if we could hold his bad handstand for a tenth as long as he can. And then he's like, yeah, this is actually, this is not good. This is, he starts correcting everything, and everybody's like watching. And I remember both Chad Vaughn and myself one time were like, man, everybody pays attention to him now, because he gave them that like wow factor. And so we're like, all right, I don't want to do something that's arrogant or anything. I'm like, but I wonder what would make sense in this situation. I'm like, all right, we're trying to get people to be comfortable. We're trying to get people to understand the importance of, embracing potentially uncomfortable positions or places that you don't like to spend a lot of time, like bottom of the squat. Great. Wonder how long I can sit down here. And it's always been, ever since I started doing that, it's just been kind of a fun like icebreaker, almost like just to get everybody to laugh a little bit, and then move forward with the important things. But after quarantine, I'm not sure how long I'll be able to sit in that bottom of the squat. We had some time away from the barbell, so I've got to get that back in gear, but I think it'll stay there for a little longer.
Yeah, for sure. What's the longest you spent at the bottom, and then obviously being able to stand it up rather than pitching it?
Yeah, no. So I had like for fun, it started with Chad Vaughn and I. We started to see just like hold for a minute. And we every week he and I would go back and forth and add 5 kilos to it. And I think we both, I don't know where we got up to, let's say 160 kilos or something like that. And I'm pretty sure like for 1 minute, just with weight, it was somewhere around 160 or 170 kilos. That was like the maximum. Eventually what happens is it's really not the legs at all. It's the core. Like you go to like get to about parallel, and there's no core muscle left, because that's what's doing all the stabilizing in the bottom, really, is the kind of the core staying active. But yeah, I know because Dave with his handstand, his max handstand hold now is like right around 9 minutes without walking, which is, I mean, just try and stand in a box, stand for 9 minutes and don't move, or hold your hands over your head, which is crazy. So this summer I started, and I didn't stick with it because it was too difficult. Dave wins. I thought, I wonder what I could sit with my body weight in a squat, just in the bottom of a squat. And I get to about 3 minutes and I can't do it anymore. It's just torturous, and it's more mental than anything. So yeah, I think the longest I've ever sat in a squat is maybe 3 or 4 minutes. And even that is brutal. But I think there's like monks and Buddhists and that can sit in like a half squat or the bottom of an air squat for like an hour. So the mind can unlock some crazy things when you do it.
For sure. And I remember we ran, I think it was a 4 minute. I don't think it was a 5 minute. I think it was a 4 minute air squat challenge, basically just to work positions, and everyone had to go barefoot and just squat at the bottom. I remember standing up after that, and obviously that was no weight at all. And my God, I was burning. I'm like, this is awful. Never mind, like with a barbell and then slap a couple of plates on it. But yeah, it is incredible how the body can adapt. But with the mindset of a weightlifter doing, a single and then sitting down, it's a bit difficult.
It's those are things, even when I was competing, those types of little challenges were really fun. And I realized, even when I was younger, I would see some of the older lifters or listen to stories, and most of the stories, everybody was like pumped to talk about. It wasn't like, yeah, at that one world championship, I snatched 180 kilos or something. Like those were kind of the givens. It was the random like training challenges, or like just stupid but fun things that people would do. Or there was a old American weightlifter, his name was Joe Doobie, and he made this crazy squat program, like not famous, but popular to the point that most people wouldn't do it. It was the 20 rep squat. Yeah. So he would do a 20 rep squat cycle. And I had heard about it, but I had never tried it. And then Chad Vaughn had recommended it to me one summer when I had some extra time to squat, I guess. He's like, yeah, you just, start at like 50% and do one set of 20, but Monday, Wednesday, Friday, every week, and increase 2 kilos each session until you can't do it anymore. And I was like, all right. And, at first I'm like, 50%, that's nothing. So I remember I started it, and let's say I started it in June. And I started it with like 100 kilos or something. And the first day at 100 kilos, like I was able to do it pretty easy, but I wanted to vomit as soon as I finished the 20 reps, and my legs were burning, everything. And then, the second week felt better. The third week felt better. Then it was one of those where it just, every session felt so horrible, but never failure. And I remember I started at 100 and I ended up finishing it at like 165. So adding 2.5 kilos every session. I just wanted the program to be over. I was like, I just want this thing to stop. But it was such a small increase. And with a 20 rep volume, your body has so much room to grow in that rep range. So it was really cool. It was, to me, it was like the equivalent of a sprinter that starts doing some, longer distance runs, but in a smart, tactful way, just to balance out a little bit. And man, it was a horrible squat program, but it was also really fun to see how patient you could be. And, sometimes you think, well, I could add 10 kilos and probably do it. But it was like, no, just stick to the plan. The goal is actually to make it spread out as long as possible, not see what I can do tomorrow and then be done. And then what? So it was not feeding into that desire for instant gratification.
For sure. It's all about building, not testing, right? And building the widest base of the pyramid you can. So eventually when everything goes up, you can reach higher than you've reached before. So talk to me about, how did you get into weightlifting?
Have you ever heard the term planned happenstance?
No, I haven't.
It's a nice way to say it was completely random and completely by chance, but everything was in the right situation and it had enough planning to happen. Nice. So like, where I grew up was tiny, like about 2,000 people lived in like my village. And it just so happened that the school district that I was a part of, the principal or the prefect of the school, he had been a weightlifter and a national class weightlifter, and then had continued with like the USA Weightlifting Organization as a national board of director and a junior national team coach and all these things. So it was really by chance that's where my family lived. He ended up there at the school district, and he would generally invite a handful of the guys and girls that were pretty active in other sports to his home gym. He had a home gym in his garage, and then eventually he built a little outbuilding behind his house. And my two older cousins were both about 10, 12 years older than me. They both lifted. It was a boy and a girl. And I thought they were cool. So when I got to be about, I think 11, I started to go with them to the gym to hang out. And the coach was, well, if you're here, you can start doing some squats and can start doing some deadlifts and things like that. And I remember when I was about 11, I think one of the first couple times that I did back squats, once they taught me how to do it, I think I maybe back squatted like 100 kilos or something. And the coach was like, okay, that's not so bad for a little guy. But I for whatever reason, I was also built very nice to squat. Like I have very small femurs and a little bit longer torso, and I'm not hypermobile by any means, but I'm not too tight. So I'm kind of that like good balance for like tight enough to be springy,
Mm.
but not so tight that I can't hit positions. But anyways, I started just basically out of curiosity, because my cousin at that time was getting pretty good nationally in his weight class. And he was like a little bit of a role model for me. But I also played American football, and I knew that American footballers were muscular and lifted. So I thought, okay, I need to do that and put these two together. And then pretty much from age 11 up to 18, I kept training weightlifting and would just add sessions little by little. Like the coach would, okay, you come 2 times per week. Then after a year, okay, now come 3 times per week. Then it was like, 16, 17, he's like, train as much as you want. And maybe you don't want to play football forever because you're, I don't know if you've looked at yourself, but you're not exactly prototypical football size, and I don't know what that'll lead you to, but he's like, you're built pretty good for weightlifting. You should, give it a go. And I just slowly fell in love with it because I really, really liked the kind of the individual accountability that it put on you as an athlete. The amount of time and energy and focus you invest in, it's like a direct result back. Like it's completely dependent on you, and I liked that a lot. So when I was 18 and finished playing high school football, I decided to just completely invest into weightlifting and make that my life, quote unquote, for as long as possible.
Well, it's panned out pretty well so far.
It's funny. It worked out in every way unimaginable. So I mean, to be honest, I when I was lifting, I was so far behind all of like the athletes that I really looked up to. I think I mostly thought, yeah, okay, maybe I can go lift at some national competitions. That'll be really cool. And then, when the time comes to do something adult-like, I'll do that. And thankfully, my coach was also, he had his master's degree in English and Latin, and he was like very educated. So he was there was at no point where he was going to let me just lift and not develop other areas of my life. So he was very much like a father figure too. So it was, I was going to go to university. I was going to get my education, do all of these other things. So staying developed, and thankfully during all that time, the weightlifting continued to improve and improve. And I was able to have a relatively long, fulfilling, fun weightlifting career with some cool competition highlights and things like that. But to then be able to kind of use that path to turn into more of a life career path, which is what it's turned into now, that was a part that was completely unexpected, because when I started weightlifting, there was no such thing as CrossFit. And as CrossFit, popped up on the side as a little sport and hobby for so many people, then it ended up, developing into an area of life that gave me like an added value and added purpose to other people. So that was the miracle that happened to allow me to keep doing this cool sport, but in a professional, more educator role now.
I really do love the fact of like now weightlifting has become a lot more popular since the growth of CrossFit, and vice versa. You get some weightlifters that are like, I kind of want to be able to walk up the stairs without panting and go over
Totally.
to CrossFit. And then they get a load of CrossFitters that are like, hey, I don't want to do a burpee anymore. Like, this sucks. I just want to play with the bar, and then hop over. And then you get those athletes that kind of pendulum from season to season or year to year or a couple of years, which is, I think it's really cool. And I'd like to, it's nice to see the growth of both sports. How did you get into coaching though? Like, did you just fall into it? Did you just like start picking it up and volunteering?
No, I mean, honestly, I really did. I'm thankful, as a younger person and as an adult, I always loved being a student. So I always liked school. I'm one of those, like, I liked being in class. I like listening to teachers. I like learning new things. And I think even maybe the, like, inner ego, I liked thinking that I was smart. so
Yeah.
like, that, I don't know that, that, which I think is maybe a double-edged sword for a quote, like knowledge is power. I think oftentimes knowledge can either be humility or knowledge can be ego. It's how you choose to wield the sword. But I liked that. It was even a competitive side of like, oh, I wonder if I know that answer before somebody else, or I wonder if I can remember things that other people don't remember. So that led me to assume that I would like to be a teacher. So I went to university to be a teacher. And actually tried it for about 2 years. And I realized that young children as a whole do not enjoy being students as much as I did when I was a young child. So the reward of being a teacher, from my perspective, there was more of a, like, it was scary. I thought, oh, this is horrible. Most of these kids don't even want to learn, and I need to be way more creative than I am to try and make it interesting for them. The teaching in terms of for younger people was not such a niche for me. I was not so good at it, I would say. So I went back to graduate school, all while I was still training and competing. And it was more to buy some time for myself to figure out what I could actually do post weightlifting career. And that's when that was right around between 2008 and 2012 was all of this kind of happening. And that's when CrossFit was starting to just kind of pop up with having gyms and accessibility for people. And there was a friend of mine who was coming to our weightlifting gym to train a little bit. And he was a very good local CrossFitter. So that was my first exposure to like what CrossFit was. We even called him CrossFit Dave, because we didn't even know what CrossFit was other than he talked about it all the time. So be like, oh yeah, CrossFit Dave comes to the gym on Mondays and Wednesdays. And he was super cool and always asking tons of questions and wanted to get better at weightlifting. And then he asked me if I wanted to come to this one gym that he was going to train at, because he thought they might enjoy some like weightlifting help. And that was like my first experience working with some CrossFitters. It was like 6 a.m. on a Wednesday, and I went with him before I had to go back to I had university classes later in the day. So I went there, did some like small group sessions with some of their athletes. It was a lot of fun. They were, really thankful and gracious. And I thought, oh, this is really cool. That's kind of all I thought. I thought, yeah, maybe I come back here every once in a while and help them out. And then they ended up asking me if I wanted to do it regularly. And then they're like, yeah, how much do you charge? And I was like, charge? Like, I had grown up with my weightlifting coach. Like, he never charged anybody anything. He's like, you don't charge people for this. This is just, it's weightlifting. There's no money in this. Like, you can't do this. So thankfully, I had a couple other weightlifting friends that had been starting to teach some weightlifting classes at CrossFits too. So I reached out to them. I was like, hey, these guys want me to do this regularly. Do you actually charge for this? Like, is that fair or appropriate? And then I had a discussion with the gym, and they actually kind of hired me to teach regular weightlifting classes. And that spread into other gyms asking. And I would say after about a year, I was kind of traveling in like let's say 100-kilometer radius from my house to teach at about like 5 to 10 different CrossFit gyms throughout the week. And it was a blast. So once I finished my my university program, and then slowly got towards the end of my weightlifting career. I was just picking up more and more classes and really, really loving it. And then, yeah, it hasn't really stopped since. It's changed and evolved in how I do it, but I've essentially stayed in that teacher of weightlifting. I told one of my athletes recently, I like to consider myself an advisor of strength now. So,
Nice. I love that.
I'll help and work with anybody that needs some advice and some assistance, and it's always a fun process to teach. I definitely consider it more teaching than coaching, but they're all words, they're all interchangeable.
It's all the same stuff, like I usually say teach the movement, coach the individual. Like coaching's usually the art of communicating and expressing towards human beings, but at the end of the day, like a snatch doesn't change, a back squat doesn't change, like that's all going to be the same. No, that's really cool, mate, because you've been able to combine both your passions then, obviously with the lifting and then with teaching. That's always really nice to hear. Someone just doing what they want to do,
No, it's a gift, because I mean you nailed a couple of things there with it's definitely an art. My wife, she's a coach as well, but her business is actually called like The Art of Training. So everything, because she was a dancer before, so everything is a lot more artistic, and it makes sense though, because it really is, it's an art and it's a lot of interpretation. But to be able to do that as a passion is a crazy gift. And I would say I didn't know that this was necessarily a passion. And now I would say, when I look at it, I would say, my passion is our people. So that's really my passion. And this is a way for me to actually get to interact with people. And it's such a cool gift to be able to, let's say, learn some skills and develop them, and then become proficient or pretty good at them. And then that turns into your passion. So there's a really cool book by a guy named Jordan Rayner. It's called Master of One. And he talks about kind of the psychology of mastery and what it is to be passionate about something. And a lot of, let's say, vocation studies and psychological studies will show that what you become very good at is generally what you're passionate about. So, if you're a very good accountant, or you're a very good gardener, or you're a very, like, if you become good at these skills, it turns into a passion. Like, you can be very passionate about it. And sometimes we think other like, I'm so passionate about, like, I love cooking or something. I don't know. That's my passion, but you're not actually very good at it. Like, it can die pretty quick. And it's not an always or an absolute truth by any means, but it's kind of along those things of like, man, just like try some things, see what you have a knack for, and then like commit to getting good at it. Like, really, really put a lot of time and energy and value into it. And a lot of times your fulfillment and your passion will come from that. So that's been a nice, I guess, realization for me is, I mean, I still love weightlifting, I still love teaching and coaching, but what I've realized is, more than anything, I love people. Like, that's the part that I like. And thankfully for technology, I still get to have a lot of interaction with people. Because we're able to do things like this. So
yeah, for sure, mate. And like, it all comes down to caring, right? Like, when you break everything down, the middle, the core is always caring. And for anyone who's ever had a conversation with you, or like had the pleasure of actually like being around in person, face to face, it's like, it's obvious that you care, like, one, about people, two, about the delivery of the teaching, and then three, about the art of the barbell, And I think like other coaches and I have conversations about this all the time. We strip everything down, geek out over a coffee and just like talk about this, that, and the other. And the next thing, like 5 hours later, we always come back to the same thing as like, you just got to care, man. That's it. You've just got to care.
I think that there's not a lot of like objective truth in the world, but that's one of them. I wrote down 3 things the other day from a talk I was listening to, and the speaker was saying like kind of like our purpose and tied into things that we want. And like we as humans, we like routine and order. Like we like things to be orderly and have a purpose essentially. And the reason of that is because in our mind, it's beautiful. So like this order is beauty. And then when we take those things together, we're able to benefit others. So I really liked how he connected that is essentially like our purpose is to kind of, take the order of whatever we're given, kind of try to piece it together and put it together to make something very beautiful. But it has to benefit other people. Like if it doesn't benefit other people, then it just kind of dies. So that cohesiveness or fluidity of these things is in my mind. Oftentimes, like I try to catch myself if they're not all piecing together. Like if I'm doing something that's let's say just beneficial to me, that's tempting, and that happens often. But the faster I catch that and then think, yeah, but how can this be helping, even if it's just helping one other person, ideally a lot of other people, but kind of always trying to frame things like that. Like I want this to I want this to come together and have some logic to it and some reason to it, but it needs to be beneficial. It needs to be helpful for other people in a good way.
For sure. And I think I genuinely believe there's a deep innate like feature within humans to pass it on, right? Even if you break it down to the biological of like just reproducing to keep the human race alive, you know what I mean?
Yes.
But I genuinely think like the communication between each other, like it's within us, right? It already is within us. You can't really explain it. People will try and explain it and they have theories or whatever, but everyone can agree on the fact of like, we want to pass something on. You talk to any parent, they're like, hey, I want my kid's life to be better than mine. Like that would have been the same all the way back to the Stone Age. Like they're grunting away. No, I want them better tools to hunt or whatever. And I think there is some beauty in it because like I have conversations with people all the time, like my book, for example. Right? I've made this book and I know for a fact I'm pretty much guaranteed to get dementia or Alzheimer's because on both sides of my family, they've all got it. Plus I've had like a million concussions from ruggers. So you know what I mean? It's guaranteed. But I also think of that as beauty because it just reinforces the fact of things are not just for yourself. So for the example, things aren't just for me. So if I give to other people, they benefit from it. That's the point. And if I don't remember it, it doesn't matter at the end of the day because it wasn't just for me. I've lived through the experience. And like we said right at the beginning, I will take something forward. Whether I will kind of remember it or not will be a different story. But I'll take something forward and I'll also leave something behind. You know what I mean?
No, that's very wisely stated. It's a great perspective to have for sure. And on a practical application to that, I don't know how familiar you are with studies with people that are like high risk for dementia or even have dementia. in terms of the benefits of, so I'm not a nutrition genius by any means. My wife is more on those lines, but there's been some studies that will show somebody that is like early onset dementia and Alzheimer's, if you have them eat a ketogenic diet, and also extreme fasting, so like long periods of fasting, you can either delay or oftentimes even start to reverse some of the effects of dementia. So
Wow.
there's not a lot of study, but it's similar in the realm of even with cancer patients.
Mm-hmm.
So when you get into like ketosis, so like a legitimate ketogenic diet, not just like somebody's like, I'm going keto and I'm gonna do this, like you're actually doing like blood tests and measuring the ketones and things. But essentially in cancer, like most cancer cells, they can't eat the ketones, so they die. And like cancer thrives off of like sugar and things like that. But there's something similar. And again, I'm not an expert by it, but it's always good to like look into it with people with dementia as well. So like my wife and I both said, like if either of us get cancer, or if either of us start to have dementia, we're gonna go like hardcore keto, tons of intermittent fasting,
Wow.
and see what happens with that. So I would say that could be a fun side study for you to look into.
Yeah, for sure. I didn't know about the Alzheimer's and the dementia. I knew about the cancer cells, and I also knew about sometimes, obviously it's individual dependent, right? But sometimes on early onset type 2 diabetes, it can end up reversing and can delay and all that sort of stuff. And keto is an incredible thing. It only gets a bad rep simply because one, people like eating carbohydrates. Two, like that first like few days, they might feel a little bit lethargic and a bit tired, and things like that. And then also peak performance. Like, yeah, granted, there are, I can't remember, is it Derek? I can't remember. There's a US weightlifter, I think he's a masters now, who's full keto.
Derek Johnson, probably.
Yes, he's incredible.
Probably, yeah.
He's awesome.
Yeah. He's a case study for a human. Like he's a he's a gem for like a species. Yeah. Like he's his own. Yeah, he's his own species. He's crazy.
Yeah, he's his own species.
But yeah, the really he is, and his two half brothers are crazy too. Darren and Daryl are equal, but they're pro carbohydrates. They eat a lot of candy.
Nice.
But yeah, no, I would just on the side, like note personal, I would, if I was you, I would start to research a little bit and see if you can find any of those. There was one article I read quite a while ago, and it was about a woman and her husband had his dementia had started to get worse and worse, and she started to she put him on a keto diet essentially, and started to do like pretty intentional fasting and things like that. And she saw a really strong improvement with his awareness and his memory and things like that. So wow. I think it's just one of those that hasn't been studied much because it's very, let's say alternative. Yeah. but it's worth looking into, especially when your family history. Like I had on my paternal side, my father and then his father, both, one had a heart attack and died at 46, and the other one had his first heart attack and triple bypass at like 42. So there's just certain, genetic things you should be aware of, and then, do your best to counteract them.
For sure. And it goes back to that, like my mum, I think my mum said the best quote I've ever heard regarding bodies and fitness and stuff. She says, Alex, everybody's different and every body is different. And It's just like, wow, that's so simple, but so true. And like the way, I think it's called nutrigenomics. It's basically how your DNA interacts with the nutrition that you put in yourself. which is a
Okay, yeah.
really fascinating thing. And you look at it at the macro scale, like Derek, for example, who's full blown keto and he's an incredible weightlifter. You get people that are vegans and are incredible in their sport or their performance, and you kind of say, oh, okay, there's all this thing, but then looking down your family line and saying, hey, what am I susceptible to?
Yep.
And then trying to work it out from that way. That's a really, really interesting way of doing it.
Yeah, I mean, it's full circle with what we're talking about. Like, there's no black or white absolute truth to any method. There's a lot of gray areas, and you just have to find which one works for that moment. Use it for as long as it works, but be open to realize that could also change, and to be flexible. Yep. And that's always, I think that's a good, from my perspective, that's a good approach to every arena of life, whether it's, your mindset, your spiritual side, your health and wellness side, your financial side, like everything is taking that stance that I probably know a lot of things, and I probably know a lot less of things as well. So staying open-minded.
Like you can never learn everything, right? And it's like the whole saying of if you depend upon one stream of income or one stream into your cup, and someone blocks it like with a dam, you're buggered. You no longer have any water
Yep.
coming into your cup. But if you have like multiple different streams coming in, then you've got a little bit more of a chance. And yeah, definitely, like people like to be certain, though, don't they? They like to be a wizard. They're like, hey, no, I know exactly what needs to happen, Mike. I'm the expert here. I'm like, hold on a minute, like no one's an expert. Like no one knows anything.
Yeah, we want to. It's our human conundrum. We want to know the definition of everything, and we want to believe the definition that we know is absolutely the true definition. And
yeah.
We have to fight that urge all the time.
I think that's the point. The point is not being certain. Like you can have your belief, your faith, your whatever it is in whatever conversation you're having, and I think the point is the fact that we can't be certain about it. That's the whole point.
There's if you like that phrase, you should look up. There's a really cool book called "The Sin of Certainty."
The Sin of Certainty. And I'm writing these down, mate.
Yeah, the author's name's Peter Enns, E-N-N-S, I believe. E-N-N-S. Yeah, and he's a really, really smart, interesting dude. But yeah, I think that's even just the title is thought-provoking enough.
Yeah, I mean, I love it, mate. Like I love all that philosophy and poetry and all that. Like it makes you think, and whether people get instant gratification from those words, or it sticks with them, and 40 years down the line they think of something slightly different. Like I think that power is beautiful.
Yeah, everything is a seed being sown. So you don't know, how deep it's going or how long it'll take to, turn into something, but it's always getting in there.
So nipping back over to the weightlifting, as we know, there's many ways to skin a cat. Think of a better analogy. What's your experience? Obviously, you've come up through the sport. You've done extremely well in that, which we've not even stroked your ego and said what you've ended up achieving.
Oh, there's the ego. My ego was put to bed when I started weightlifting, because my coach, the first thing he said was, no matter how much you lift your entire sport, there'll always be somebody that can lift more than you. So you can just remember that now. And he had coached multiple Olympians. So the bar was already set, what ended up being unattainably high. So I'm super thankful for having a good career and hitting good respectable numbers for the sport. But the any ego that I might have had when I was competing was like a straw man ego. It was just there to help me, help me keep a tight back for that particular lift, and then go away.
So what numbers
sure.
did you finish on, and at what body weight?
My body weight was always more or less 77 kilos. And my best lifts in competition were 140 kilo snatch and a 165 kilo clean and jerk. And then I was always bummed because in training I had cleaned 170, and I had towards the end of my career even jerked around 180. But I was never smart enough to figure out how to put that together at the right times for a clean and jerk. So I was always a little bit bummed on that one. But I loved snatching. So I was the 140 kilo snatch was a goal I never actually thought that I would get. And then right towards the end, my second to last national competition, I actually made that lift and was really, really happy.
That's so close to a double body weight snatch.
Yeah, it was. I had, you have all those little goals when you're training. I always wanted a triple body weight squat, which I got, and I was super pumped for that. And then I thought, oh man, it'd be really cool to have a double body weight snatch. But I didn't think that was even close to attainable. And then when I started to get a little bit closer, I thought, oh, okay, yeah, I can definitely get it. And yeah, close is close enough.
Yeah, for sure. Especially when you're getting into those types of numbers, like, 500 grams on the bar feels like 10 kilos. Never mind adding a couple more kilos. Like it feels awful.
Yeah, I've had so many of my own athletes that, they'll miss a lift or make a lift and be like, oh, I just felt so heavy. And I go, yeah, and it's only going to feel heavier the longer you lift. I'm like, there was never a point where like I was like, man, I just feel light. I'm like, no, it always felt heavier. You just convince yourself that you're capable of lifting heavier.
Yeah.
But it always feels heavy. Somebody says it feels light, they were lying to themselves.
It's that split second, right? As soon as you break the bar from the floor, there's that the instant it goes in your head. You're like, oh my, this feels like the weight of the world.
Yep.
Like it doesn't matter what it is.
Does.
Some days you go in and it's 60 kilos and it feels like that, and other days you go in and you do 105% of your PR. But it's funny because everyone gets the same. It doesn't matter what's on your bar. Mm-hmm. Everyone gets that same thought. They're like, oh dear, this is going to sit me down.
Yeah. Totally. That's one of the beauties of how simple weightlifting is.
For sure. So simple yet so complex.
Yeah. That's why I love it.
So what's your opinion on the whole coaching weightlifting? Like we got the whole Western side, Eastern style. You got the hybrid, the complete, the works.
Yeah. I'll always, I talk about him so much, but my coach, his name was Lou DeMarco. And I'm thankful he was very philosophical. So he grew up Catholic, and he actually went to the seminary, and he was studying to be a priest. And then he decided he didn't want to be a priest. So he had his, his Latin language and everything like that, went on and got his master's degree in English and became a huge Thoreau, Emerson, Whitman, like all these famous, contemporary poets and things. He was big on all of them. So he always had just great thoughts and great statements. But he and I would clash oftentimes about like what he thought was the right way to coach and program for me. And then me being very, obviously super knowledgeable when I'm 18 or 19 about all things, training and what I should be doing. I had my thoughts. But probably the most wise thing he told me was, he said, the program that you think works is the program that will work. And he said, it doesn't matter, how great the method is, how great the coach is. If you don't actually think it works, it's not going to. And I would say the same thing. So, it doesn't, like, somebody wants to do the Bulgarian method or the Chinese method or the Russian method, or turn their shoulders internal or external, or, you know, dynamic start or static start or frog stance or square stance. There's so many things. It's like, you know, step one, you have to actually trust it. And then you better be patient to try it through the times that it's not working. So I would say like patience, consistency, and trust. Those are the methods that work. And then honesty. And then, is this actually like fitting my body style? Am I listening to what my body's telling me? Like, am I getting hurt? Am I getting, you know, tweaked and injured? Because then I need to, and this is for coaches too, then I need to look at, is my technique good? Is my volume, you know, too little, too less? My frequency too little, too less? The diversity of movement too little, too less? Like, you know, all these things. There's, yeah. I think you can simplify it though, and then just being trusting, being honest, being open-minded, and being, you know, flexible to try some things out, but patient enough to be consistent. So it's
100%.
You know,
And
the
they clearly all
training
work.
methods of life are the same. Yeah. So they all work, because, you know, you can go into every world champion of every weight class, and you can find every training style, every, you know, technical nuance that's ever been there. And they're, like your mother said, they're, you know, everybody is different and every body is different. But there's also a lot of similarities too. So I would say the similarity of every, you know, successful weightlifter or training method or anything also revolves around balance in the most objective way, and in the most like even like metaphorical or theoretical way. So like balance simplified to everything you do better be in the center of your foot. And you can kind of build your entire training program and technique and individualities off of that like midfoot focus. But then in terms of balance, just looking at what you're doing, you could put it into is an output, is a weightlifter, or is my weightlifter, or am I jumping forward often? Is that balanced? No. Okay, then I need to figure out how to get back to the balanced, which might actually be focusing on jumping back for a little bit. But that's not going to be an answer. That's just going to be a temporary fix that's trying to find balance. And then you have to dig deeper and look into everything. But I'm giving a big soliloquy that doesn't give a very firm answer.
Well, I think that's the point. I think that's the point in weightlifting though, isn't it? Like everything, it's all the same. We all do the same thing. Most of the time, the outcome is exactly the same. Yet just the way we got there was a little different. And I think that sums up Olympic weightlifting perfectly.
I would agree.
Like, you do see people coming in and use your. I'm really glad you used the example of the midfoot, right? That's something I seriously agreed on. When was the seminar?
It was either I think it was end of 2017.
I think it might have been. You know, so what's that? Is that 4 years? 4 years ago?
No,
3 years ago.
It'd be like 3 years ago.
3 years.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was end of 2017, because it was pretty cold.
For you, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? No, I know it was because Dave and Sadie, we were on like a whole European tour and their little daughter was with us, and she was only 6 months old, and she's 4 now. She just turned 4 a month ago. So yeah, so that would be.
Oh, that's awesome. Wow.
Yeah, that would be it.
Yeah, so that's something that my point was. Yeah, so I really agreed on the midfoot, right? Because if you just look at the anatomy of the foot, like, why would you, people say weight in the heels, right? Okay. And I understand why they say weight in the heels, because if people are getting a little toey and they tip forward,
then
say
it's
weight
easy.
Yeah, it's easy, right? But it's an easy cue But if you're briefing the board or briefing the movement before anyone's under any load, tell them the truth. Hey, I would like the weight in the midfoot.
Yeah. No, that's you nailed it right there. Like telling the truth, because a cue is just a Band-Aid.
Yeah.
And if you rely on these cues, then you don't learn anything.
Yeah.
And then you're super frustrated. And like I put that into I'm deep into religion and the Bible and everything, and it's actually the same. Like so many religious people or Bible teachers or even other faiths, they oftentimes just teach cues, and they sound really cute and they work until they don't work, and then people get super frustrated or they make big mistakes because they were following a cue and not a truth. And you know, you could simplify. That's everything to me simplifies to balance. And it doesn't matter if it's weightlifting, if it's financial, if it's relational, if it's religious, anything. If it's imbalanced, then it might work a little bit, and it might work for some people for longer than other people, but eventually it's really gonna leave somebody wanting more. So yeah, like the cue, like weight in the heels, it has a purpose. And oftentimes it's a really good purpose and with good intentions, but it's not the truth, because if you take that truth literal, you're imbalanced and you're gonna fall on your butt. And that's what ends up happening a lot of times. Or, you know, I've inherited athletes from other coaches, and the other coaches are really, really good. But maybe there was a lack of communication or misunderstanding, and then this athlete was doing something like very, very technically wrong, and it's just because the verbiage or the terminology wasn't fully explained or fully questioned and understood. So like you said, you have to just tell the truth. Like, what do you actually want? Like, do you really want the weight on the heels, or do you really want the weight in the middle of the foot and they're just too much on their toes? So right now we're going to talk about the heels to try and balance it out, but be aware that what we really want is right in the middle.
And it doesn't make any sense. Like, if you break it down, if we genuinely needed weight in the heel of the foot, why do we have the rest of the foot? Why don't we just walk on stubs?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
It doesn't make any sense. We have toes for a reason. Like I usually use the cue, like everyone, like you watch it and their toes just flick up and they're just passive. And you're like, mate, I want you to drive that big toe into the floor like you're trying to pick up a pen. They're like, what do you mean? I was like, well, why do you have toes? They're there to grip the floor, like give you some feedback, know what's going on. Like I love allowing people to train without shoes. Like, because the amount of times that people like just get no feedback whatsoever and just don't even think about anything from the knee down. You know what I mean? And I'm just like, look, mate, if I amputated from the knee down, you would notice it. So you might as well use it. It's being able to say, hey, this is what we want. This is, you know, the truth. However, when your back's against the wall, you're in a workout, especially with CrossFit, or you're under a heavy load or just under a load, you know, the stress is up, fire them a quick cue, bang, go for it, fix, try and alter things as you go. And then it's like, hey, the reason why we say this, and just explain. Like, it takes you like, what, 5 seconds?
Yeah.
And
then that comes out like as a coach, you in that moment, if you weren't explaining it, you're either, you know, you're lacking the patience to do it, or you haven't, you know, put in the consistent work to truly understand it, and you need to, you know, be honest with yourself in that sense. Because I mean, I've made that mistake plenty of times where I've worked with somebody, let's say for a couple of years, and they're making some similar mistakes or something, and I've been giving them the right cue all the time and they're not doing it. And then finally we have like a deeper talk, and I tell them what I want. And hey, you never told me that. If you would have just told me that, I would have done it, you know, the right way a year ago. I'm like, yeah, that's my fault. And it's like, yeah, I didn't think you would understand it, or and it's, you know, we're making assumptions instead of offering, you know, truth, honesty, and good explanation.
Hmm.
That's why I think, I don't know if I said it when I was at Solent with you guys, but I try to always start off when I'm teaching or with anybody, I go, just ask why. Like, asking why is the best question you can ask in any situation. And if I don't know, then the best answer I can say is, I don't know. But then at least we know that I don't know, and we can both start to try to figure out, like, you know, if somebody has a pain, they're like, my back's always hurting. Why? I can make a guess. Or I can say, oh, I really don't know. We need to dive into this a little more. Maybe we need to go talk to somebody that might know more about this than me. And that's good. I just started working with a new athlete that had a back injury, and she said, you know, she's frustrated, blah, 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 but she doesn't want to go to a PT. She just wants to train. And I said, yeah, well, I said, I'll tell you what, I'm comfortable working with you for about a month, and we'll see if it gets better. I said, I'm pretty sure I know what you need to do, and I know how we can train it. I said, but if it's exactly the same in a month, and it definitely better not be worse, I said, then the two of us need to consult with one of the PTs, the physios that I work with. And I said, but if we get to the end of the month and you're feeling better and more capable, then we probably figured out what it is, and we have the right working relationship, and we can progress forward. I said, but I can't promise you that I can fix it, because that's not, that's above my pay grade. I'm not a physical therapist. I've worked with enough weightlifters and myself that have tweaked their back and hurt things. And I have really good resources that I can lean on that have taught me a lot. But I think being open and honest with that truth statement is vital in the coaching relationship for athletes to trust you, and for like self accountability, to be willing to be wrong and then learn from that.
I think the best thing you can say as a coach is, I don't know. And then there are some times where you can end up figuring it out, and you communicate with the people in front of you. Like, too many times you think as a coach, like, I need to know all the answers all of the time. And they're the students and I'm the teacher. And I'm like, look, if there's 10 people in your class, you've got 10 people's knowledge you can learn. So you can also be the student when you have your teaching hat on, for example. But something that you did, and I love it. I absolutely love it, where it's the fact of like, hey, and it's apparent in weightlifting, because you're like, this is how I want you to move. This is the next cue. This is the next drill, blah, 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 blah. And then you break it down. And obviously by observing the group, you're like, oh, well, this lad is moving this way, but this lady is moving this way. And you're like, oh, hey guys, watch this. And then you go, Sandra, can you do that again, please? And blah, blah, blah. She does it again. Awesome. Thank you very much. Good job. Mike, can you do it again? Mike does it again. You're like, oh, what was the difference? And then you explain why. And it's like, hey, that cue that I actually gave you doesn't work for Sandra, but this one will do. And you see how that happens. Everything still reaches the points of performance. It still basically moves the bar from A to B, moves the bar from the floor and puts it above your head. And it will be 3 white lights or 2 of them. It doesn't really matter. There's always that one judge, right? No, red light. Absolutely. I'm like, for what? I don't know, something. And you're like, oh, okay, brilliant. Thanks for the feedback. But it's just being able to, like, being honest of the fact of, hey, I'm going to coach this way, but also I'm going to have to adapt for you guys in front of me, and basically fire out like a million different cues, and kind of seem like you're ADHD because you're going at 100 miles an hour, which I love. I love that battle on the floor, in the arena, throwing punches, and you kind of like, there's like 10 people in front of you. You're like, all right, wicked. I'm going to coach this class 10 different ways.
Yeah. It's a fun challenge, but you're being, as you should, as a coach or as a human, you're being inclusive. Like, you're including all the options.
Yeah.
Like, you can't exclude anything. You can't exclude somebody's personal perspective, their perception of what's going on, your biases, like all these things. You have to be willing to, have a little bit of that, like you said, ADHD in that moment. And it's not that it's not even an attention disorder. It's more a hyper active sense of being hyper alert. So wanting to meet all these different needs and diversities and practice your skill of coaching and tending to people's needs where they are.
And to bring it all full circle, the only way you're going to do that is if you care.
Yeah, that's the foundation. You have to. Thankfully, thankfully, a sport like weightlifting and even CrossFit, the beginnings did not show much financial promise. So if you didn't care, you weren't going to stick with it. Mm-hmm. And even now in these times with COVID and all this crazy stuff, a lot of the gyms that have been able to maintain and thrive are with communities that just care, that just really, really care about it and put in that little extra to matter and make it work. And it's the same. That's what allows for the homeostasis of wellness. You have to care.
For sure, man.
Centerpiece.
I say people make the world go round, right? And I don't mean this in a naive way of saying people are the greatest thing on the planet. But what I mean by that is the synergy between people, the combination and the interaction and everyone helping one another, like the whole thing of like, we'll all stand hand in hand. Like everyone helping one another is what makes this world. And it all goes down to caring.
Yeah, no, I'll agree with that. Onto my deathbed. You should, if you wanna get stoic and blow your mind, look up some philosophical views of spiral dynamics. And then that'll make your statement make even more sense.
Did you look at that? Every day's a school day.
Yeah. It's I mean, you can look at it from the science side, but try to find it on the philosophical side, because it'll tie into what you just said with, people make the world go around. Like it's all interconnected, way more than we can comprehend from our limited mental capacity and three-dimensional views.
I can believe that, mate. I can believe that because, I weren't the best in school. I wasn't the best learner. I am well aware I don't know anything, which is kind of like negative towards me, but it's the whole fact of like, it's a daily way of keeping yourself humble of like, hey, if you don't know everything yet, which obviously you will never do. But it's also like, don't stop trying. Don't stop learning.
Yeah. Because if you truly think you know everything about something, you won't be studying it anymore. And then, you're just sitting on your little pride stool.
And no one will like it.
Sad. Yeah, it's sad and lonely up there. So it's better to come down with the learners of the world.
Yeah, with the people. Yeah, for sure. Oh, mate, I really, really appreciate your time.
Yeah, no, it was a blast. I'm excited. It was a great way to start my day, and hopefully it was a nice way to end yours.
Oh yeah, you're starting your day. I mean, you know it's ending mine. You've literally just seen me like drift away into the darkness behind me.
Yeah. I'm like, I've got the meeting with the poltergeist right now or something.
Yeah, I know. Just hopefully nothing comes out of the shadows behind me, because I will crap myself.
Yeah. Don't look over your left shoulder. Just stay focused.
Okay, I'll keep looking at you. Look into the light. No, exactly. Honestly, man, like I really, really appreciate it. And obviously whenever the world sorts itself out and stops scrapping itself, I'd love to come over to Crete and throw it down with yourself and Stella and your missus. I think that'd be incredible, mate. And if you ever get the opportunity, or even just make the opportunity to get over here, mate, like
so we my wife and I love, if you don't watch it, our guilty pleasure is living big in a tiny house. And that's the guy on YouTube is from New Zealand, I think. If not, he's from Australia, but so many of the episodes are in New Zealand. And he lives in a tiny house, and it's just, it's amazing. It's and my wife is in love with it. She's like, oh, we should live there. And so, yeah, we would gladly make a reason to come visit. And if we know somebody, which we do now, that makes it easier.
Get on a plane, mate. You got a place to stay. No problem.
Ah, beautiful. Then it's a deal.
Perfect. I like it. All right, mate. I really appreciate it. You have a cracking day.
Yeah, get some rest. Remember, you gotta sleep to nourish the mind and body.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, yeah. Thanks for everything. I really enjoyed it, man.
No, thank you, man, and we'll catch up very soon.
All right. Beautiful. I'll talk to you soon,
boss. Take it easy, man.
Bye bye.